The government shutdown is now the second longest in history as that stalemate continues. Today, though, all lawmakers have the opportunity to vote and allow federal workers and active duty military who are working still to get a paycheck. Joining us now to discuss this and more is the Executive Vice President of the National Taxpayers Union, Brandon Arnold. Good morning to you, sir. Great to see you. I might also add as well that while the government is shut down, all those lawmakers on Capitol Hill, they are getting paid. So that makes today's vote even more important when you think about the fact these lawmakers have to put it on the record, because this isn't about reopening the government, but just about getting these workers paid since they're still at work right now. So what do you make of this strategy?
Yeah, I mean, what the Democrats are doing are using federal employees as leverage to try to extract their demands, and their demands are massive. You're talking about a package that's totaling about $1.5 trillion just to keep the government open for what would only be about 4 weeks now. This bill only extends pay and keeps the government open until November 21st. So to ask for that much money for a 4-week government opening, it just doesn't seem to make sense to me.
And don't you think they know this is a non-starter? So what's the play here?
Yeah, they think that if they keep holding their breath and stomping their feet, that they will eventually get their way. We've seen children try that time and time again. It doesn't work.
Never.
And Democrats have decried this time and time again. Republicans have used the government shutdowns to try to get policy wins many times. And every time it's happened, Democrats have said this is irresponsible. This should not take place. Now that the shoe is on the other foot, they're very much claiming a different narrative here and saying that this is going to somehow yield the results that they're looking for.
What effect is this going to have the longer it continues?
Well, we're going to see bigger and bigger effects. You know, you start to see air traffic controllers calling in sick because they're working and not getting paid. That can cause flight delays as we get closer and closer to the holiday season. Federal employees, obviously there's hundreds of thousands of federal employees across the country, not just in the Washington area. When they don't have money to pay their bills, to pay their mortgages and so forth, you have broader economic effects. So this hurts the economy, whether you work for the federal government or not, and it certainly disrupts our way of life because the federal government is such a large percentage of the overall economy.
And we were also talking about SNAP benefits, food stamps. The funding for that runs out on November 1st. What happens then, Brandon, when that kind of funding runs out?
Yeah, you're going to have a lot of people that are threatened with serious food security. SNAP benefits goes to the neediest Americans. These are people that need assistance just to purchase their groceries, the most fundamental need that we have as human beings. When you start to interrupt the flow of those payments to our neediest Americans, then you have enormous effects, not just economic effects, but effects on their life and well-being as well. So that's very concerning. As you said, November 1, you're going to see about half of states not be able to make those payments to individuals.
Two parts of the healthcare budget right now that are out of control: healthcare spending and obviously the interest on the national debt. Medicare and Medicaid spending are up a whopping 8%. Clearly, this is way out of control. What if we refuse to decrease this spending?
Yeah, I mean, we're facing an enormous catastrophe. We spent almost $2 trillion on healthcare just from the federal government. That doesn't include private sector spending. That is more than the entire economy of big countries like Australia or Mexico. And continuing to subsidize the health insurance industry here, the healthcare industry, which is what Democrats are trying to do here with this massive Obamacare subsidy, it's just going to continue to make healthcare costs spiral out of control to even exceed the pace of inflation, which, as you note, 8% growth in Medicare and Medicaid, it's just out of control. And we've all experienced that if we've had a loved one that's been in the hospital or needed prescription drugs. We need to contain these costs, not to continue to pour fuel on the fire.
We shall see what happens today. And Executive Vice President of the National Taxpayers Union, Brandon Arnold, hopefully when we talk to you again, it'll be a different story. Good to see you.
Let's hope so. Thanks, Jim.